We're live! Yay! Awesome. This is so exciting. It's wonderful to see those of you who are joining us already. I am Aubrey with Redbudsuds, obviously, and Amanda. She is joining us from her home in Akron. I'm in Canton, Ohio. And then we are so thrilled to have Monika and David all the way out in Washington from the LNT Center here to talk with us about some really awesome stuff that's going on with the LNT Center and some cool research they're discovering. We're going to give maybe another minute to let some folks join. We're not going to wait too long because we have so much cool stuff that we want to be able to jump into. But just want to give a super warm welcome to everyone who's joining us. I think we can interact with the chat. So if you want to pop in the chat where you guys are coming from, it's always really fun to know where people are joining us from. So feel free to put in the chat where you are finding yourself on this lovely day. Monika, is it as hot in Washington as it is here? We're like baking. I'm like almost like, why did I sign up to do this in the camper? Because it's really hot.
No, it's actually not too hot here. Well, it's the warmest 2 days I think we've had. It's about 70, which is just about
perfect. Bummer.
We've had a surprisingly kind of chilly summer. Like it's been in like the 60s, like low 60s. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Don't even tell me that. So hot.
We decided to be outside with you today so that we could be kind of camping, like we're camping with you, but just so hot. We had a few people get lost over here, so that's why they screened for a moment.
They're doing some road work and there's a trail nearby and there's no place to park, so they're gonna just park over here for a little bit. But
nice.
That's island life.
That's hilarious. That's so funny. So you're actually on an island? I forgot this.
Yeah, we live on an island off the coast of Washington. Yeah.
New life goals. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump in. Again, thank you everybody for being here. The way this is going to work is we'll have our chat with Monika and David. We'll leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. We'll have the giveaway, which you must be present to join. And then once it's all over, we'll go ahead and open up the video so that if you guys want to actually say hi to us and whatnot, we can see everybody's faces. But since we're going to be recording this for showing on our website later, we figured we'd respect everybody's privacy a little bit and just have the presenters until kind of the main content is over, and then we'll have like a little social couple minutes. So let's dive right in. First of all, I've already kind of introduced Monika and David. Thank you both so much for joining us. Oh, and we'll probably let Amanda, this would be a good time. She's gonna kind of disappear for a little bit. She'll come back to help us with the giveaway at the end. So Monika and David, we got to know you both actually at an event in Dayton, Ohio, a couple of weeks ago, or a year and a half ago now.
That's what a pandemic does to you.
Yeah.
Early October of last year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so it was actually less than a year ago. That's crazy. Feels like we've been in pandemic mode for ages. But anyway, we just really had a good time connecting. Your booth was right next to ours. And for everyone who knows the Redbudsuds story, I basically founded Redbudsuds because of Leave No Trace ethics just burrowing itself into my brain. And so it's always really fun at shows and events when we get to be close to the Leave No Trace representatives. So I thought as I was starting out the Camper Chat series that bringing some Leave No Trace friends on to share from the inside, give us the inside scoop of what it's like at the Leave No Trace Center would be a good idea. And you guys were so willing to have our conversation. So thanks again so much. I kind of want to set the stage a little bit as we begin to just acknowledge, there are big things happening in the world today that make life not really feel like business as usual happens. Between the COVID-19 pandemic, between all of the racial, dynamics, and trying to figure out how we live in the most equitable way possible. I know at Redbudsuds that's something I care deeply about, these issues, and trying to find ways to kind of move forward. And I know at the Leave No Trace Center, you do as well. So I guess it'd be just kind of interesting. You know, we're a mostly white organization. There's a lot of you know, predominantly white people working at Leave No Trace Center as well. If we could just touch for just a little moment to acknowledge that this is kind of where we are, but that we are doing what we can to find ways to learn and grow and do things better. Do you want to just give a couple, you know, words about what that looks like at Leave No Trace right now?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for creating that space. I think it's really important to acknowledge that, yeah, we are primarily a white organization. There are a lot of people that work within the organization that are white. And moving forward, there is a lot of work that we are doing. Leave No Trace stands with the Black Lives Matter movement. And we're working really hard to navigate our next steps to continue that momentum. So Leave No Trace has signed that outdoor industry CEO diversity pledge. And we also currently have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group with the goal of determining actionable steps for moving forward for the way that the center can both internally and externally build a more diverse and equitable and inclusive future for Leave No Trace, for everybody that is practicing Leave No Trace. And our goal is that everyone can practice Leave No Trace. And that starts with all of us being safe and feeling included and being included in the outdoors. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, Redbudsuds was founded to help people live more lightly on the environment. And obviously Leave No Trace also exists to help with environmental, you know, conservation, preservation, and awareness. So I guess it's been interesting for me, both personally and professionally, to try to figure out, like, how do I respond to these social issues as well? And can I? Something that has been, you know, I've done a lot of reflecting, research, and writing a little bit on the idea of environmental intersectional environmentalism, where we realize, you know, it's not just that to do environmental work or to do social work is, you know, one or the other. It's that everything is very closely related. So I think that's given me some help to be able to find resources about intersectional environmentalism, and I look forward to just continuing to do that learning and kind of doing it alongside of our customers, et cetera, too, because it's there's a lot for sure. So we know one of the things that Leave No Trace has been really digging into in the last number of months is some research into how, with COVID-19, to adventure responsibly. Tell me what you're finding there and some of those things that we can do as well. You know, we don't have a ton of time and these aren't necessarily things we like thinking about, but knowing that our individual actions really do have a big impact. Tell us what you're finding. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I have one more note?
Yeah.
Just on what you were saying, I really appreciate everything that you're saying, and it's really important to acknowledge Leave No Trace represents a broad and diverse international community with the shared goal of protecting the natural world for all, and systemic racism impacts this goal for the outdoors. Thus, it is a Leave No Trace issue, and it has become a main focus for us at this time. So thank you for everything that you're saying, and yeah, let's dive into the research.
Yeah. So since the beginning of the pandemic, the center thought it would be really important to conduct some research on human behavior and attitudes towards how we are recreating. So since April, we've conducted 3 phases of surveys. We got about 2,500, a little over 2,500 respondents through 3 phases of surveys since April. And essentially questions that were asked were, what were your recreational behaviors prior to the pandemic, and then what are you doing right now? And then we followed up through these different phases. And what we discovered is, like, some of the biggest takeaways are that right when the pandemic began, about half the people who responded said that they were recreating within 2 miles of their home. So that was a big shift from before, where people were, might drive, a day's drive just to, go rock climbing or go mountain biking. And towards the last phase of the survey, it was almost 70% now are saying that they are traveling further than that 2-mile radius, but there's still quite a bit of people who are staying within that. And something that has really come from that is that people are starting to diversify the kind of recreational activities that they do. So people who maybe were specifically into more hardcore sports like mountain biking or rock climbing, for instance, started getting more into gardening and walking and running, doing things that could happen in public lands that are near their home, as opposed to venturing farther out where they might be putting themselves or others at risk. Especially if you were to do something where you got hurt and the first responder had to come get you. And right now we want to make sure that we are prioritize that they can prioritize their time on people who potentially are sick. Something else that came out of that is that people aren't traveling as far out into the backcountry. So at the beginning, prior to the pandemic, people who responded to the survey said that on average they might do a trip that's almost 5 miles, on a trip on average into the backcountry. And at the beginning, that decreased quite a lot. Over the 3 phases, it has increased, but it's still now, I think it was almost a little over 3 miles is the average. So people aren't going as far, which I think also shows that people just don't want to take that risk. If you're out there longer, and say if you would come in contact with somebody and you don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere and start coming down with symptoms. So it's just people are staying closer to home and doing new activities. But,
that's so fascinating. I want to just jump in a little bit. There's a little bit of a wind coming on. I don't know if you can just shield your mic or turn the computer a little bit so it's a little more protected. That might help.
Yeah, we can, do you need this? What we'll do is we'll just turn this like this. Because the wind's kind of coming from that side. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
We tested it before, but then of course the wind will always change direction.
Yeah, I'm really surprised actually that no neighbors have started mowing their lawns. That usually seems to happen in the middle of my conversations too.
Yeah, same.
We do Instagram lives every Friday, and that's we try to be outside as much as we can when the weather's nice. And that's always a fear, is that somebody's gonna start mowing their lawn or just something's gonna happen.
Neighbor's dog will start barking.
So I just wanted to jump in a little bit too and say, it's so interesting that you're finding out this research. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but that's totally what I'm experiencing. My husband and I have just, we actually did just take a little bit of a vacation to do some backcountry camping. Didn't go very far, but we were thinking, as we had some time out of the house finally, we have missed feeling those deep connections with nature, like what you do when you're on a 5-day trip, wilderness trip. So we've been kind of scratching our heads and thinking what are more ways that we can just really get our hands dirty and feel connected to nature right around our house. And gardening is one of the things that's really come up. We actually had a tree fall that created a bunch of sunlight in our backyard that we didn't have before. That happened a couple weeks ago. So it's interesting to see how these things, we feel them personally, but to see them as patterns across the board is kind of interesting. So keep going. I didn't want to say too much, but I thought that was kind of a cool connection.
Yeah,
that's so important.
No, that's because we've been off the road for the most part since the research started, the results from the research started coming out. And I was noticing that we were doing the same trends, because now that we're in one spot, we were walking just close to home. I started a little garden here in the yard. So it's everybody's kind of collectively doing these things together to still get that outdoor recreation without going too far or putting themselves or others at risk.
And from that research has also come our recommendations moving forward. So we did just go ahead and put a link to all of our COVID-19 resources, which includes the recommendations that came out of that research as well. And we also have a link to our newsletter and blog and everything like that. It's in the chat now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for putting those there. So are these recommendations similar to or the same or different, kind of above and beyond the initial Recreate Responsibly guidelines that were put out by that council of a whole bunch of different organizations?
Yeah, definitely.
So they are different. These are specifically the Leave No Trace guidelines that the center developed based on the research, and so they have been evolving throughout. So when initially, right when it was declared a pandemic and states were beginning to lock down, we thought it was really important to come out with recommendations because, you know, people are still going to be wanting to venture outside. So we came out with these recommendations right off the bat, and then, since each phase of research has come in, we've tweaked them and you know, changed them so that they fall in line with what people's behaviors are and what their expectations are. And it's just been really nice because then we can use the data from the research and these guidelines to help with our state and federal partners as parks are beginning to open, because, you know, some of the questions asked, you know, what are people's attitudes towards parks, you know, if they're going to have a capacity limit, for instance, on how many people can come in. And a lot of people said, yeah, we would feel more comfortable if we knew that we were going to a park that said that they were only going to allow a certain amount of people in, you know, on a certain day, so that you know, there wasn't packed trails. And
yeah.
We could take a moment just to run through our recommendations right now.
Sure. Yeah, I think that'd be great. As much as we all want to do good and look it up later, probably most of us will forget by the time we leave. So yeah, let's hear it.
Overview, and maybe it'll perk your ears up and be like, oh, I want to look more into that.
Great.
So, I can just run through them, or you want to go
sure.
back first? Okay. So starting with you and your outdoor world. So that's just everything about being prepared, and really, especially during this time when things are constantly changing, looking up and researching ahead of time and being prepared for the risks that are involved, and everything like that, just in terms of assessing your risk and your health, and the health of others. And then we have expect closures. So that's something that we probably have all experienced recently, things being closed, even when it was declared a pandemic and it was determined that we traveling teams needed to find a place where we could stay home and stay safe for a longer period of time, because normally we live full time on the road with our tents. And even driving back home, there were national parks closing while we were trying to find places to camp. So I'm sure that all of us have experienced that to some extent. And so just being really prepared, you know, having food, having water, being prepared that even if the parks are open or different natural areas are open, that potentially bathrooms are going to be closed, and knowing how to dispose of your waste properly. And so that's a really important thing to always have in mind. And we have lots of great videos and a new one coming out soon about how to poop outside. So
my favorite topic.
Everybody loves to talk about food. All my favorite pooping moments have been outside.
Obviously. I think it's so funny because I talk with people often who have questions who haven't done backcountry camping before. You know, because I've guided and I just love long trips, and that's almost always the number one question, is like, people are super freaked out about, like, well, how am I going to poop in the woods? I'm like, trust me, it's better than for sure doing it in a public restroom. Just trust me, like, it's so much better.
It is, but we always recommend, if there is a public restroom, always use that option first.
Right.
Yeah, and then knowing how to pack out your waste in areas where you're not allowed to bury it as well. Yeah. And then going on with our COVID-19 recommendations, packing out your trash, especially with limited staff and services right now in different parks and areas, really helping take that burden off of land managers. And then avoiding times and places of high use, having a plan B if an area is really crowded, and even checking the volume ahead of time. There's lots of park websites and areas that will show you the volume of visitors and what day and what time of day is going to be the least crowded, because overcrowding can lead to a variety of impacts, which is what we like to focus on, is how we can best minimize our impacts outside. So minimizing impacts such as trail widening and erosion, trampling vegetation, creating new picnic spots, all the type of things that occur when you see overcrowding in areas. I know we're short on time, so I'm just trying to run through.
Yeah, you're good.
And then we have two more. So then right now within our COVID recommendations and just in our daily lives is always to practice leave no trace. So doing what you can to learn our guidelines, learn what the principles behind us mean, and really carrying those out in your day-to-day life from the backyard to the backcountry.
Yeah, and like, for instance, like if you're on a trail and you have to step off the trail to physically distance from someone, making sure you're stepping on a durable surface like a rock, so that you're not trampling on that vegetation.
Exactly, and that is a perfect example that brings us to our last recommendation, which is be considerate and kind to other visitors. So especially when if you need to pass someone on the trail, it's kind of funny right now when you have your mask on and you can't really tell somebody's smiling. And so taking those extra steps to be really kind and communicate and give each other the benefit of the doubt in these situations.
Which is kind of a good life practice in general, but especially so in new places. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Thank you so much for giving that rundown. That was really, really helpful. And for anyone who's watching, we kind of forgot to do the introduction of like what is Leave No Trace at the beginning, but Leave No Trace has 7 principles that seem pretty like no-brainer, especially if you've been doing a lot of outdoor adventuring already. But I really would recommend or encourage you to just kind of revisit those and familiarize yourself with them. For example, because water is such a focus for Redbudsuds and soap, I can't tell you how many people who are so well-intentioned and who see themselves as like, thoughtful, environmentally savvy people, forget that, you're really not supposed to use soap directly in the water. So just reviewing those principles can really help us put our best foot forward, Cool. Well, there was another little question I had for you before we dive into the lightning round and our giveaway, which is this idea that Redbudsuds tosses around a lot of, small actions make a big impact, can make a big positive impact, and our collective impact can be pretty profound. Sometimes it's hard for us to see those individual actions and how they add up. So I was curious if you have any, examples or stories from your experience or from your research that can kind of highlight how these, how our cumulative impact is pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you for that question. You mind if I?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, in your daily life, there are so many different things you can do. And really, this is what we teach at Leave No Trace, is that it's all about the individual, and we are all about empowering and inspiring the individual to take actions to minimize their impacts in their daily lives. And we talk about this from the backyard to the backcountry. So that can be when you're just at the grocery store, making those active choices to pick items that maybe don't come in plastic, and reducing everything that you have, recycling as much as possible, composting, and picking your dog's poop on walks. Those are some great tips just for in your daily life and those are ways that you can be practicing Leave No Trace when out on the trail, and you can be sticking to durable surface, taking your trash out and picking up others, making sure you have gloves on, especially right now if you're picking up other people's trash, but doing everything you can to carry out those principles. And there's just so many small things that we can be doing. And what it really comes down to is that there's just so many of us that exist in this world that what we so often talk about are our cumulative impacts. If it was just you or me going outside to these amazing natural areas, and even if we were leaving our trash around, it wouldn't really leave that much of an impact. But last year alone, there were over 13 billion individual visits to our outdoor spaces. And so just imagine what our world would look like if everyone was practicing Leave No Trace, because that's a lot of individual pieces of trash and bags of dog poop that were likely left behind, which we also have a lot of research on. But in terms of a personal anecdotal story, do you want to share that?
Sure. Yeah, there was we do workshops all over the country, and we work with people, and often, as like we will interact and we'll have a workshop, and then we leave and we go to the next place, and so it's hard to see any follow through with what it is that the education that we're providing. But there was this one time where we were in this campground, and we were camping there for a few days, and this woman came up. She was camping there, or she was our camp neighbor with her family, and there is a faucet nearby where everybody was just kind of doing their dishes underneath, and kind of like what you're talking about, everybody's just washing their dishes right there. And she asked us, what is the best way to be doing our dishes when we're camping? Because it's something that, she hadn't thought about till she saw our car and what it is that we were doing. And so we told her about how what we recommend is to do your dishes, take the water from whatever water source it is, do your dishes, and then make sure you're going 200 feet away from camp and natural water source and broadcasting it. So you're dispersing that impact. And And she's like, oh, okay, cool. And then the next day we were leaving to go to a program, and we saw her and her kids were off the road 200 feet away from the camp, and she was showing them how to broadcast the water. And it was just like, all right, like
we
really
both teared up. It was just a moment for us. Yeah, and I think that like in that there's like we have a lot of research into that that shows that the education that we provide is impactful and does make a difference. But what Dave's saying there is like we don't always get to see it firsthand, that difference that we create by offering that free education around the country. And so to see it firsthand was really special. And I think it's a good example of how, imagine if everybody at that campsite was practicing that. Now, just keep widening out, right? Within that state park, within the country, and keep widening out, because that's what it comes down to, is us all working together as individuals to make every difference that we can to minimize our impacts.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing that story. That's really, really special to be able to see that firsthand.
Yeah.
And I think for me, if I can just add another little of my own twists of what individual impact looks like, or what kind of action we can take as an individual. I've been thinking a lot about, like for some of us, it's easy to focus on the micro, and for some of us, we focus on the macro, like the policy or whatever. And I think for something like, caring for the public places that we want to play, taking the small personal steps that we can as we're out adventuring, that's one part of it. And then I think the other part of it too is doing things where we call and elect officials that are going to protect public lands, or if we hear of something that's threatened, like for us the Save the Boundary Waters campaign is like huge, but we actually use our voice. It might just be one call, but or one letter, but using our individual power to work together to really protect these places, I think is so important, equally as important as the we take when we're, being responsible washing up our dishes. So, yeah.
Lauren, I just want to mention that I just got your soap that so half of the proceeds go to protecting the boundary waters, right?
Awesome. Yay.
That example right there is making it a part of your business, making it a part of your ethos. And so we really respect that and are so grateful for your partnership on behalf of Leave No Trace too. It really, you're inspiring. And also we haven't addressed this, so you have the best soap ever.
Well, thank you. I agree, but I'm kind of biased. Affirmation. Cool. Well, we have just a couple minutes left. We want to really try hard to keep this to half an hour to respect people's time. But we've got a lightning round. I'm going to shoot you some real quick questions. You're just going to rapid fire answer them, and then we'll be on to the giveaway. So, number one, where is your favorite place to adventure?
So our favorite place to adventure is in the bays, inlets, and islands of the Salish Sea. We're water babies, and we just love to be on the water no matter where we are. But, home is really special to us.
That sounds awesome. Sailor Sea, gosh, I want to go there right now. Favorite adventure food?
We had a hard time with this one, but we realized that we always eat dried mangoes. That's without a doubt.
Really
where we are in the country, we can find dried mango somewhere.
Not super cool. Okay, so this one is a pair. Your biggest wish and your biggest fear.
Ooh. I said my biggest wish is to live in a world in which every individual practices leave no trace and anti-racism. What's your fear?
Fear?
You give him a hard one.
Probably like pandemics and climate change.
Ollie, don't remind me. Quick, next question.
I think global climate change. Yeah.
There you go. Person or moment that inspires you?
My mama.
I like that.
Amazing.
A book that is a must read?
Okay, I have a few, but I wrote them down. So A Fierce Heart by Spring Washam, and anything Mary Oliver.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. Favorite podcast?
Ooh, Hidden Brain.
I don't know that one. I'm gonna have to check it out. Music? Yeah. Favorite music or favorite artist?
A few. Nora Jones, Ride or Die.
Awesome. A lot of Nora Jones.
We've been listening
Jack
to
Johnson.
Valerie June a lot.
Valerie
recently.
June.
Yeah, she's
awesome.
super rad.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thus concludes the lightning round. Thank you for playing. It is time for the giveaway. So let's bring Amanda back. And while we get Amanda squared away, just so that people know, after this is all over, if you can think of anyone that you want to share this content with, or just stay in touch with either us at Redbudsuds or the Leave No Trace Center, you can find us, Redbudsuds. Obviously, you already know how to find us. You found this. So Leave No Trace Center folks, what is the best way to follow up to get more information, etc.?
Yeah.
After this.
Oh, you get it?
Go ahead.
You can follow our Instagram, follow our Facebook page, and then we'll also put we put our link tree in the chat, and that'll send you to our website as well, so where you can check out our blog and our YouTube channel. We have an extensive video library of just a bunch of tips and tricks that really dive into every principle, every Leave No Trace ethic that we teach and practice.
So definitely check out those links in the comments.
In the link tree, yeah. Yeah, all the links there.
Perfect. And we'll have this whole chat recorded and up on our blog as well. And in the notes, I'll put all this fun stuff that we've talked about in the links too. So, all right, the time has come. Giveaway drawing. Drum roll, please. Amanda, we can't hear you yet. You might have to unmute yourself.
Should we show off some prizes?
Oh yeah, we're gonna show the prizes. Can you show off what people are gonna get?
Yes. So from us, you will be getting a Leave No Trace starter pack, starting with a Lucci light. Do you want to go ahead and hold them up?
Those things are awesome. I have so many of them.
Lucy inflatable light.
Solar powered.
We have a wag bag for you, so you can pack out your waste where areas require you to, where regulations require, and a trowel that has actually, it measures up to 6 inches, so you can perfectly dig your cat hole.
Nice.
And minimize your impacts. We have some amazing hang tag info cards for you on a little carabiner.
These have just some different tips and tricks depending on what outdoor activity you're doing.
We have a Deuter dirt bag for packing out your trash. And then we also have some super rad Leave No Trace stickers. It'll just be a crazy assortment. There's even more than this. So
very cool. And I have a shower bar. Let's see if I don't have it in my hand, but I have a shower bar and chufa. There they are, hiding, of your choice that will also be coming your way. So the winner gets all. Drum roll, please. Amanda, you got the lineup?
Yes. Our winner is Nelson Klein.
Congratulations, Nelson. Yay. I know for the Redbudsuds store, if you get anything using, Amanda, what's the code for Redbudsuds?
Leave No Trace Chat.
Leave No Trace Chat. You get 20% off a purchase. No, sorry, hold on. 20% of any purchase you make at the Redbudsuds store goes to the Leave No Trace Center for the next 24 hours. We'll probably extend it just a little bit. So within the next couple of days, we'll be supporting Leave No Trace that way. So if you order anything at the Redbudsuds shop, redbudsuds.com, 20% goes to Leave No Trace.
thank you all so much.
Okay, cool. That's what it is. Sorry, I got that all mixed up.
No worries.
Super cool. So I think that concludes the main content. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording. So thank you guys all for joining us.